Welcome to a very special edition of Fanlight Zone Presents. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast. I'm also the editor-in-chief here at FLZ. To my left, your right at home, you know him from the comic reviews on Wednesday. Please give a warm welcome to the one and only Rich.
Well, it must be the spring and in the Easter season because we have a certain guest, and it seems like we like to talk to him in this season.
Yes, because around this time of year, he's dropping an amazing book, but he drops some amazing books year round. But what happens when the robots take over and humanity is wiped out, but a lone voice is out there trying to make a connection for something more? That is the story that we're going to be breaking down by this incredible writer, because coming out in May is If Destruction Be Our Lot by Image Comics. It is one that you want to run to the FOC and make it happen, because honestly, you can tell by how excited I'm messing up my words. I don't even care, because this book is amazing, and let alone the other projects he has coming out. And if you know his pedigree, obviously you know why we're super excited to talk to him again. So you know from what's the furthest place from here. 4 kids walk into a bank, and the coolest sci-fi story you're gonna read. We're taking everybody down with us. Please welcome back to the show the one and only Matthew Rosenberg. Matt, what is going on?
That was such an exciting intro. I forgot who the guest was, and I got really excited to find out. And then I was really bummed when it was me. But I'm happy to be here. But I was like, oh, this sounds great. You guys really got someone, and it's just me. That's fine. Thanks for having me, guys. This is great.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, seriously, your work speaks for itself. And this new project, this looks absolutely wild. How did this whole story come to be?
Well, there's a funny story that I just found out is not true, but I'll tell that anyway. I've been working on this book for a long time, in various forms of notebooks and thoughts and scrap paper, and trying to do it and then stopping. But to me, the origin of the story was right in the early days of the pandemic. I'm in New York. The city was on lockdown, and I'm a real night owl anyway. And so I would go out at 2, 3, 4 in the morning and just wander, because there was no one on the streets, and I never got to see that. And so, I'd walk down to Times Square and just be like, it's empty, and, walk around Central Park and stuff like that. And I really, it was not, I'm not breaking the law. There wasn't a curfew, just people weren't going out, nothing was open. So there was nowhere for anyone to go.
Right.
I was trying to think now if I was breaking the law. No, I wasn't breaking the law. I was like, wait, was there a curfew? No. And in that time, I remember having just this vision come to me of the animatronic Abraham Lincoln from a certain theme park, just wandering the city, empty city, and just being like, what if animatronic Abe Lincoln had survived when all of us died and he was all that was left? And that vision was something that made me chuckle when I was walking in a very dark place. And then I kept coming back to it and just being fascinated by it, and eventually turned it into a story and realized that there's really something there. The reason it's in my head all the time. Only yesterday, I'm co-writing the book with my brother, Mark. And only yesterday did I mention this to him, that I was like, yeah, and that's where it started. And he said, yeah, that's an awesome story. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, cool. We started working on this book before the pandemic. And I was like, that's not right. And he pulled out a notebook and was like, I date my notebooks, and this is before. And I was like, huh. So I don't know where it came from, but he was like, you came to me with that vision. You definitely had this idea of Abe Lincoln. There's a car alarm going on because I live in a city. We're okay with that, right? We don't mind the car alarm.
Absolutely.
Right.
We do it live. We're doing it live.
Yeah. All right. So I had this. My brother's like, you definitely came with that vision. It's just not, the origin of the vision is just you being a weirdo, not the like haunting New York City. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll take that. That's fair. So that is the origin of it, is just this one idea. And then I brought it to my brother. He's a screenwriter and a director, and we'd been talking for a long time about making something, and he wanted to make a movie, and I wanted to make a comic, and I won for some reason. And so, we went to Andy McDonald. I made Multiple Man and Marvel with Andy, and he's a good buddy and a genius artist. So we just brought this to him, and I was like, he's either going to love it or hate it. And he got so excited. We were on the phone for like over 3 hours, just like talking about ideas on the book, the first call. So that's it. From there we were rolling.
So now that we know the legend that will now become the real origin of
Sure,
Lunar
yeah.
Code. That's what it is. We'll wait till the legend becomes the fact, and then boom, that's what we'll go with. Now that we know the legend of it, what is the elevator pitch for If Destruction Be Our Lot?
Sure. It is a world, humanity is extinct, and it's a world where all that remains are cities and the robots who once ran them, who did all of the things that make a city run and keep people comfortable. And they go about their daily lives doing their jobs. The bus is driving its bus route. The breakfast robot is making breakfast, setting the table. The cleanup robot is throwing in the garbage collection robot's putting in the landfill, and never at any point is there a human to interact or eat any of these things. And all of the robots are pretty content to just do this, to just do what they're programmed to do. They like their jobs, and they like that we're gone and not getting in their way, except for the animatronic Abraham Lincoln, who is convinced who is painfully lonely. He's a very odd man out, and he's convinced that he has to be here for some reason, and that there's a greater purpose to him and to all of this, and he is determined to set out into the world and find it. And it's an epic odyssey about loneliness and defying extinction and finding your place in the world and trying to do good and just trying to connect with other people. And it's got jokes. I say all that and then I'm like, it sounds like a bummer, but it has jokes. I promise.
No, it looks amazing from the previews that we've seen of it. And honestly, people, you need to get this in your collection. I'm just saying right now, just from the little snippets we've seen alone, I'm already sold on this. And now,
Awesome.
especially too, with you writing and working with your brother on this, and speaking of his movie background, what has been the experience like now bringing him into the comic world, and like what's been the pros and cons with that?
The big con is obviously that he's a jerk. So no, it's funny because he is early on. I talked to him about the process of making a comic, and I could just see sort of terror creep onto his face because we work in a medium that is a little more run and gun and chaotic than film and television, where my brother tends to work. And I think the idea of being like, yeah, when issue 1 hits the stands, we're going to be writing issue 4. Like we'll be, or maybe it'll be being drawn, and like we'll be writing issue 5. Like the fact that like the train is already in motion while we're laying down track scared him, as it should any normal person. Like it's a terrifying way to make things.
Yeah.
And we started working that way of developing the book like that and being like, well, we're going to launch. And after a certain point, I realized my brother has an amazing brain for long form storytelling, for narrative, for detail, for themes, like all these things that, I think I'm fine at, but like there's a lot of places where he excels where I don't. And I realized that just making him do a book the way I do a book is not using his skill set to the best of our ability. And so we stopped and we went back to the drawing board, and I said, what if we just made a ton of this and spent a long time making it? There's an old filmmaking expression: you make a movie twice, once when you film it and once when you edit it. And that's sort of something we've brought into this, that like we are, your normal, I guess people don't really know, your normal creator-owned book, your normal superhero book, you're usually 2 or 3 issues ahead of what people are reading. You're usually a couple months ahead. It takes about a month for the book to be printed and distributed and reach store shelves. So like you have to be finished, but right before that and give it a little wiggle room. And so you need about 2 months. So you're usually 2 or 3, 3 months ahead. We're working on issue 11. I think when the first issue comes out, we're gonna be working on issue 12. So we're in the 3rd trade paperback, which is very unusual for me, for most comic creators. And it's given us the ability that we've gone back and been like, oh, actually in issue 9, we really like this character. Let's hint to them here. Let's actually change a scene. Let's add some pages here. And we've really rebuilt it, which has been, God bless our editors, Steve Fox and Eric Harburn from Tiny Onion, because they have just been like, this isn't how it's done, guys. And we're like, yeah, we know, but they're masters at their jobs, and so they keep track of everything. But there's a lot of like, this scene is actually moved an issue, and this scene is moved up, and this character, like, we're actually going to add a page where this character appears for a second, and things like that, which is really fun way to make a book, and is not cost-effective way to make a book. It is not a time-effective way to make a book. The judge, the jury's still out on whether it makes a better book, but it is fun. It's a fun experiment, and so I think a lot of that is my brother, his influence, and me wanting to use his skill set to the best of my ability. Yeah, I think that I there aren't a lot of cons to it, really. We're having a good time. I mean, I think. I said this to someone and they thought I was saying it was a downside, and it's not. I've done a lot of co-writing before. I've written with, like James Tynan and Mariko Tamaki and Kelly Thompson, Alex Packnadell. I make a lot of my creator-owned books with Tyler Boss. So like, I've done a lot of co-writing. In those situations, even those people are my friends, you still always want to be careful and delicate. Like, you don't want to insult your friends. You don't want your friends to be mad at you. You want to keep it professional. Boundaries are sort of hard to figure out in a friend-work relationship, and all that goes out the window when you're making a book with your brother. It's like, I can just be like, he gives me something and I can just be like, this fucking sucks, dude, or he can be like, this is shitty, do it again. Because at the end of the day, like, we're gonna be eating dinner together when we go see mom, like, we're gonna be at Christmas. he's got to deal with me. There's the need for tiptoeing around each other and being delicate is out the door, which I think is really good. I think has really liberated us to make a book that we're both really proud of.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good strong point, because it does make a lot of sense when, obviously that familial bond is makes it a little easier to be like, yeah, you know what? Yeah. And not to mention, you probably aren't really going to be able to slink it by him anyways, if you were trying to be like nice about it, like, oh, well,
Yeah.
it's really not, because he's just be like, what did you really think?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And then you eventually have to be like, well, it sucked. Like,
yeah. It's not like it goes away. It's not like I'm like, well, I don't really see that person that much, or like, I won't talk to them a few months and then we'll have other stuff. It's like, no, I talk to him a lot. Like, I go play with my nephew. Like, I'm in the house with him, and then if it's in the back of my head, it's gonna come out. Then I'm like, I didn't like that. I didn't. So it's better. We're just cards on the table, and I think it's the other thing is that we are creatively pretty different. Like, our influences are pretty different, and our interests are pretty different, and so there's a lot of our disagreements aren't our stylistic ones, and like things of that nature, like storytelling and story instincts are different, and it really means that like the best idea has to win, because one of us has to sell the other one when we're at it. And there's never a like, well, it's your book, so I don't know, your name's above mine. It's just like, no, we every disagreement is a settled argument at some point. So and I think the book is definitely stronger for that.
That's awesome. Speaking of friends, you just mentioned, you work with a lot of friends, and on this, you are also working with a friend, and not just your brother. You are working with Andy McDonald, who you worked with on Multiple Man in 2018. You mentioned kind of earlier briefly when you were pitching this idea, you went right to him. So what made him the perfect choice to illustrate this series?
It was 2018. Last night, I talked to Andy on the phone last night, and he was like, we did Multiple Man together. He said, what was that, 4 years ago? And I was like, yeah, probably. Time is relative, I guess. I'm sorry, can you say the question again? What
made him the perfect choice to illustrate?
What made him the perfect choice? Yeah, that's what I thought you said. I'm just testing you. No, I went down a little rabbit hole of realizing that I may have lost a couple of years of my life there somewhere. Andy, it's funny. Andy is the perfect choice, like, for a lot of reasons, which sounds like I'm just flattering him. But one, I just love his work. I think he's amazing. Two, the book, I try, especially in my creator-owned books, to like offer a little of everything. There's going to be some drama. There's going to be some heartbreak. There's going to be some humor. There's going to be some hope. There's going to be horror. There's going to be action. There's going to be, anything. Like, I sort of throw everything I have into a book. And so I need someone as a partner on the book who can handle all that. Like, I have people who are like good at action or good at comedy, or, really good with character moments, but they can't do the other thing. And so it's Andy offering all those skill sets so well is great. But the big thing that Andy does that I think puts him in incredibly rarefied air is just his ability to do world building. Like, we set out, and a big thing for us was like, it has to look like our world, but different. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, it's just robots. And he was like, cool, I'll come up with a robot design. And I was like, no, every robot is different. Like, you have to come up with, 400 to 600 robot designs. And he was like, oh yeah. And like, it, like, there are people who would have hung up the phone right there, like a lot, and probably should. And Andy, that just gets him going. He gets excited about it. And like, he came back to us, and he was just like, how long has humanity been gone? And we were talking about the timeline, and he's like, so these aren't all robots from then, right? And I was like, maybe not. And he was like, I think you're probably getting robots building robots, right? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, and once you have that, those robots are almost definitely building robots, because that's what they come from. And I was like, sure. And he's like, I think the robots should be moving further and he's like, there should be ones that are definitely recognizable, and then there should be ones that are moving further and further away from anything we recognize as human. That, like, it's an entirely different evolutionary strain of like, they're serving purposes for robot interests that don't make sense to us. And so he started building these robots that we were just like, these are crazy looking. What are these? And he was like, yeah, I don't know. It's just like this thing. But then conversely, at one point in the book, you run into this robot who makes breakfast. We talked about that. He's we referred to him as Toasty, that he's a little robot who makes people toast, but he makes breakfast for people, but he's no one to make breakfast for, but he does it every day. And Andy was like, okay, I'm going to design him. And he came back and he was like, he's a human facing robot. He would be built by humans to be in their house, right? And we were like, yeah. And he's like, so he'd be appealing. He'd be very sleek and smooth. And we were like, that all makes sense. And he's like, I think he would look like a little egg. And he came back, and the breakfast robot looks like a little egg. And we were just like, oh shit, it's a little egg that sort of just wheels around and offers you eggs. And I like, his brain just works in that way that like mine cannot stretch and do. And just, he doesn't mind spending 2 days doing just like gears and wires and stuff. He actually, it's funny, when he started, he wanted to get Lincoln's likeness down. He was like, I need to be able to draw Lincoln. Like, I need to know that I can do that. And I was like, yeah, for sure. And he spent a long time working on it. And then his drawings started to be like, it's Lincoln, but like a panel has moved on his face, and you can see wires and gears. And then it would be like his eyes are out, and you can see into his head, and there's like circuits and stuff. And now he just does that. And I said to him the other day, I was like, are we going to have an intervention for you? Because he just uploads them into the Dropbox for art. And he's just like, Lincoln, there's just a folder called Lincoln heads. And I think it has just like 28 heads of Lincoln that are all just different angles and perspectives. And like, I was like, we don't have any use for these. And he was like, no, they're just studies. And I was like, you've drawn like 160 pages of the book. Like, I think you've nailed the character at this point. And he is like, I mean, he's drawn more than that. He's drawn 200 something pages. But I'm just like, you've nailed it. And he was like, always good to practice. And I was like, I don't think that's what this is. I think you're like addicted to it, but whatever. It's cool. He just gave me a pouch of them, and I'm actually mailing some to comic shops, just like being like, here, right, someone subscribes to the book, give them an original sketch from Andy of Lincoln's exploded head. So
That's pretty awesome.
That's awesome.
That is really
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So like, Andy's that, and also on top of that, he's like the funniest, nicest dude I know. So it's just a joy to work with him every day. He's just, I at one point was like, I keep sending him emails, be like, you want to do something stupid? And he's like, yep. And he doesn't even ask. And I'm just like, let's draw this, or like, let's make this thing. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So yeah, we're big on, me and Andy are very simpatico on like, let's use our talents for stupidity, and that makes him the perfect guy for the book.
And that definitely comes out in the pages too, like just the synergy that you have, obviously being creators, and just the fun you're having with this. I mean, just like I said, the little stuff that we've seen thus far. That's why I say, readers, you need to go out and get this book. Make sure you're down at the comic shops and getting this on your FOC. And obviously, going back to something that you actually put in your Substack, which everybody should be signing up for too as well. You mentioned Abe is kind of a strange old hermit. So without spoiling anything, how did that evolve in his personality as you were writing him?
It's very funny to write a character who's, one, a famous historical figure, and then two, is not that person. Is like, I'm not writing Lincoln. I'm writing a robot who does and doesn't know that he's Lincoln. Like, he has all of Lincoln's history, but he's aware he's not Lincoln. And so he's a weird character to tackle. And he early on, that duality was really really powerful for us. And I had this moment where I was like, oh, he knows he was assassinated. Like, he would know that as a educational tool. He would say, and I died on this day. And I was like, Jesus, that's horrifying. Like, he knows how he died. And like, all of these things together sort of made me realize, like, we always knew the book was about a character who didn't fit in. None of the other robots look like humans. All of the other robots mostly have a job that they can do, even if it's not for a person. Like, the bus can drive a bus. A bus is still a bus, even if no one gets on it. Abe feels very out of place because his job is to educate and entertain, and everybody hates him. And everybody knows what he knows already, because they're all robots who just have access to the same information he has access to. So he can neither educate nor entertain anybody. He just annoys everybody. And that, to me, that was an early idea. And then it was always just like, well, the book is about him trying to find a friend and find someone to connect to. And the more we worked on it, the more just like lonely he became and more isolated he became as a character. And sort of the more joy we get from making it hard on him, because we know where the story's going, and he does connect with people, and he does his world does open up and change. But I really like, there's an issue later on where you see Abe where he lives, and there's an early version of the book where he goes to a charging station and he just stands on a pedestal and powers down and charges. And I like that. And then we changed it, and what we changed it to, I won't spoil it, but what we changed it to where he lives, I was like, oh, that's so funny, and it's such a good character moment. And then when Andy drew it, Andy was like, this is the saddest thing I've ever drawn. And it totally changed it for me. And I was like, oh, he's alone. He's a hermit. He's this lonely figure. And like, we knew that, and we play with it, but like, some of the things that I thought were like fun and, quirky, Andy was like, no, this is really devastating. And I was like, oh yeah, it really is. Like, when I see you do it, it's so sad. And yeah, he just became more and more lonely. Again, the book has jokes in it. I will stress that the book has jokes in it. It is fun and funny and weird, but yeah, I mean, a big thing about this book, like, it's about a lot of stuff, and it's about, the political divisions in our world today, and it's about how we view, put people on pedestals, and it's about loneliness, and it's about, the pandemic, and it's about all of these things. It's about AI, and it's about societal collapse, and it's about, climate change. But it's at the heart of the book. I think a big driving principle is that the book is about the ways we're separated from each other, and the ways that we're losing connection to each other and losing empathy. And it's something that kind of terrifies me a lot, is just like the distance we all have, like, between each other and between ourselves and our neighbors. And like, even in like the attempts to close that distance, I think a lot about like Twitter and how they were like, well, it's a great community meeting place. And it took a long time to be like, no, it's not. It's a horrible business designed to sell you, to sort of turn you into a kind of politically fringe weirdo. And like, you're not a person enjoying a park. You're a product that people who sell bad ideas are coming to sell. And I was like, even our the things they tell us are public spaces, the things that we tell us are places to meet up, are predatory and sort of driving wedges between us. And that, to me, is like a big thing of this book, is just like, Lincoln just wants to connect to people. He just wants to have friends. And like, people can come up with so many reasons why they aren't connecting with other people, but like, all you have to do is just sit on a bus with someone and talk to them, and that's a connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, with all those deep things, it's cool because like, you touch on so many different things. But trust me, we knowing if anybody knows your rating, we know there's still jokes.
Oh yes,
which is always a great thing. So it's not like I love the fact that you can get super deep, but still kind of bring it back with some humor and stuff like that to move in. And you mentioned about how like Abe is there to be like an educator. And the title of the book, though, is kind of an education in its own because it is from a play off of Lincoln's Lyceum Address.
Yes.
So when you chose to use that as the foundation of the book, what was your draw to do that?
Well, it's a pretty loaded question, but I guess I have to talk about it. The first of all, there was a lot of names we kicked around. There was a whole bunch that I really like that went back in my folder, and I was like, well, I'll use that another time. But we ended up on a bunch of different Lincoln quotes that were very broad, and we kept coming back to "If Destruction Be Our Lot" because obviously destruction is a big part of it. It's a post-apocalyptic story in a sense. It's not your typical post-apocalyptic story because the city is there and it works fine. There's just no people in it. But the speech, the Lyceum Address, is a hell of a speech. First of all, it's Lincoln's sort of political coming out. It's his first like reprinted address. It's the first known like public speech of his that was sort of distributed locally and nationally. It's a hell of a speech, but it's also a speech about, well, the collapse of democracy, the collapse of America, and how he envisions that's happening. And he envisions it happening through the rise of, bad actors and demagogues taking advantage of us. And he says, no outside force will ever bring us down if destruction be our lot. And it's about how if America's going to collapse, it's going to be because we choose to collapse ourselves. And it feels politically relevant to talk about that as the country is more divided than it's been ever since Lincoln's time. A lot of the things he talks about in the address, whatever side of the political spectrum you're on, you have to recognize that this is what he was talking about, whether you think it's going to be the collapse of the country or not. This is what Lincoln thought would be the collapse of the country. And he should know because he split the country in two. So he has some experience in this. And, I think it's a cool phrase, but also, again, a lot of themes of the book of like the divide between us and the things that separate us. He was talking about that. He was seeing political rifts, and he was seeing people who are not thinking about their community and their country and their neighbors. He saw that there would be people who would take advantage of that, and there would be people who would act selfishly, and that if played correctly would destroy the country. And so our book about a destroyed country and people who are not taking care of each other and not thinking of each other, it just seemed like a good speech, and it sounds cool.
It definitely does. And like you said, a little on the nose, and it works out though. Once again, I think that it was a perfect one to land on, just because just hearing you say about all the ideas and the deeper parts of it and everything, it just makes perfect sense. It really does.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, like I say, it touches upon a lot of what's happening right now, and unfortunately, and just, especially too with how, going back to the story with the robots taking over, and it's a result of, AI winning. Like how did, when you're creating this, like, how did this just factor into, like, this has just such a horror feel to me about this.
Yeah. It's I think a big idea for us in it was, whenever it feels like horror, turn away, like zig when you expect to zag. Mm-hmm. So like a lot of the setting is horrific, and a lot of the tone is sort of horrifying, and we lean away from that, which I think, one makes it less. When I say it's an unconventional post-apocalyptic book, it's not cannibalism and people eating each other and hunting each other for resources. It's a very happy bus driving its route. It's a very happy toaster making toast. And I think in doing that, in subverting some of the naturally horrifying elements of it, I mean, there's still some horror things in there that we do, but in subverting some of that, it ends up being much more surreal. Like, it's surreally creepy and weird is something that I really like. There's a lot of horror comics on shelves, and there's a lot of horror comics I love. There aren't a lot that are just as many that are just kind of surreal and strange and eerie, not to step on EC Comics and their wonderful title Eerie, but eerie is not a thing that we do a lot in comics. And I think I more often than not, I would rather lean eerie than scary. So that's what we did.
And you're absolutely right. There's a lot, like the new renaissance of horror is definitely in comics. So if you're a horror fan and you're like, hey, I'm looking for something new in horror, comics is your place. Because there's a little bit of something for everybody in the horror realm in comics.
For sure. There's so many great horror books. And that's the thing, is like we enter a crowded medium. Like there's a lot of horror comics, there's a lot of sci-fi comics, there's a lot of dystopian comics. I mean, I write a dystopian comic. So I'm like, how does this book stand out? How is it different than the dystopian book I already write? And that was a big challenge for us. And not that we're making art to be different than anything else, but it is looking around and being like, what am I not? You know, I like to think of the books I read and the art I take in as sort of like nutrients. And I look around and think, what am I not being fed? Like, what vitamins am I missing? And so that was some of what we did. And it's not, you know, a response or a reaction to the market. I'm not trying to be like, I market tested what's missing and what we need. But it is just I don't know, I want to make something that doesn't feel like anything else. And in some ways, you know, I don't think it's necessarily a smart career move to want to do that. I think making a thing that feels like something that's popular is a smart career move. I think that, you know, I love Absolute Batman. I think Absolute Batman is awesome. I love the Absolute books. Never in my wildest dreams am I like, I should make a Absolute style superhero book. Like I should make an over the top. I'm just like, yeah, that's great. They go do that. My brain is like, okay, what's the opposite of that? And it's not because I don't love it, because I do. I have every issue, and I think it's a great book, but it is like my brain just goes, what are we not getting though? What do we need? What are we not seeing? And sometimes the things you're not seeing because nobody wants them. And I hope that's not the case here, but it is a risk we run.
No, but I think it's a very fair statement, because whenever you're creating something, you want to do something different. Like I think to fall in the same tropes of what everybody else is doing is exciting to an extent, but it's also, you know, you want to do something that stands out and really makes a statement in your own voice. And I think, I think, how you're setting it up, I think that's exactly what we're getting in this book too. And I think that's why fans are really going to enjoy it, because it's not the same old story. It's something that might look like something, but once you get into the pages, it's going to go completely different. And that's the hook. Like that's what we want as readers, to get, I don't want to say a bait and switch, but we're looking for the jab and we get hit with the hook.
Comics is the perfect medium for it, because I think comic book readers in particular are always willing to try something different.
Yeah.
And there's so much out there, and that's the really cool part. Like it just like as a fan, not even just doing this, or like you create comics, we basically pontificate on them and editorialize them and review them. And the whole thing is, it's awesome that any given week I can do like 5 or 6 different genres and like something different. And I think that it to the point, I think comic book fans are always willing to give something a shot. And that's why there's so many cool things out there. And so it's like the perfect media to do something, I don't want to use the word experimental because it's not experimental, but something different.
Yeah. I think a lot about when Tyler and I were starting What's the First Place From Here, we kept coming with these ideas that we were like, we should do this. And then we were like, a lot of people won't like that. And like we would sort of put it aside and be like, that would bum people out. A lot of people wouldn't like that. And I think we hit a point at the same time. And I think I said it, but I knew he was thinking it, which is just like, but we like it. And if we like it, someone else will like it. And eventually when the book start, like when we were getting ready to launch, I was like, look, we did not make a broad comic. We made a pretty narrow comic. It's pretty strange. It's paced weird. It's got weird ideas. Like it's a lot of mystery. It's a lot of things that you don't get in comics a lot, the way we structured it. And I said, I think we'll have a lot of people who check out the book and go, not for me. And the people who stick around will care about the book really, really deeply, because it is for them in a way that like it's for you and me. We're making the book we want to make. And I'm really proud of saying that, because I found it to be like, I mean, the book sells well. I don't want to say that it doesn't. I'm not trying to be like humble. Like I'm very fortunate that people check it out, and we're very fortunate that people like it. But like, there's a key core audience for What's the First Place from Here who are incredibly passionate about it, like tattoos and cosplay and all that stuff in a very serious way that is beautiful and wonderful to us, but also like a lot of people say the same thing, which is just like, I never got a book like this before. Like I didn't have something that I felt this way about. And I think that to me was like a defining influence in this book of just like, we're going to do some weird stuff. Like we're going to pace it weird and it's going to have a weird setup. And, you know, it's a book about the extinction of man. And like, it's just somber and funny and sweet. You know, one of the stores reached out and was like, you know, we want to do a store exclusive. And I was like, it's very flattering. Thank you. And they were like, we want to draw Lincoln, you know, with a weapon. And I was like, okay, it's a little weird. And they were like, what weapons does he use in the book? And I was like, his mind, like the power of speech. And they were like, does he have at some point like fight someone with a like anything like a rock? And I was like, no, it's not that kind of book. Like, it's Abraham Lincoln. He doesn't really fight anyone. Like not a guy who was personally fighting people a lot. A lot of people led a lot of people to war, did not personally mix it up with the crowd as much as far as we know. So yeah, I think the retailer was kind of caught off guard, but they got it and did a cover and it's great. But I think there's a funny expectation that a book was a certain way, and I think we're defying that in a bunch of ways. And I think I would love it if everyone checked it out. And I also am not offended if some people are like, that was not for me. I'm like, yeah, no, it wasn't then. That's fine. Like I have other stuff and a lot of other people have other stuff that's for you. We're making something is for a certain person. And I don't know who that person is, but hopefully it finds them.
I'm gonna volunteer that I'm the person.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. It touches on all the stuff. Like I love history. I love sci-fi. I love the horror angle, and of course, I love humor. And don't worry, Ken, I won't hijack it and talk about pro wrestling because technically speaking, Abe Lincoln was a pro wrestler. So that just throwing it out there technically. So there was some violence. I would love to believe that he cut promos like Gorgeous George. I just want to throw that out there.
Sure.
Getting back in. We have to. There's an elephant in the room, a gigantic elephant in the room, because this project isn't the only thing that has made the news for you lately. And always, it's awesome to talk to. I was arrested. People. Yes, but no. But honestly, it's always awesome when we get to talk to like people that we really get along with and we like, and they do amazing work, and then see those people winning, and you're obviously included in that, and it does me great pleasure to say congratulations as you have been announced as the writer of Spawn and King Spawn going forward. Yes. First question is, have you always been a fan of the character, and how excited are you to take on Spawn?
No, I just found out about him last week. No, I'm a lifelong Spawn fan. I was as a wee little one, Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee were my guys. Like before I knew I had guys, those were my guys. Before I knew, like I would buy their books every month and just be like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I was the kid who was buying 2 copies so that he could cut out pages from one and like have it in my locker at school or like put it on my wall. And then I want a copy that's like perfect mint condition. And so that was Todd for sure. And when he left Marvel and went to start Image and start Spawn, I went with him. And so I've been there from go. I was a little kid, and I loved it. I love Spawn. I love more than that. I just love all of it. I love what Todd's built. I love the legacy. I love Al Simmons. I love the character. I love the universe. But I love the legacy of what he's built. I love Image. Image comics changed my life. Changed a lot of creators' lives, a lot of fans' lives. And so I have nothing but love and respect for it. And when you ask what it means, I don't know. I made a commitment to myself early last year that I said I'm working on DC versus vampires. DC was talking about doing more, and I was like, I don't know that I want to do more. And we sort of kicked around an idea, and it was really weird. And they were like, would you like to more ideas? And I was like, I think I like the weird one, and maybe I don't even like that. And the book did well, and I think they would have been happy to have more for me. But we just kind of they were like, let's get you on something else. And I hit this point, and I love DC, and they've been great to me, and have been nothing but supportive and kind, and I owe them, and it's just a great creative experience and great audience. And I between launching We're Taking Her Down with Us and it doing much better than I expected it to do, and being, you know, a viable book that we can make a lot of, and still eat meals and pay our mortgages and all that, like, is a nice feeling. And then the Four Kids Walking to a Bank movie is like going on set and watching them film it, and like being in all these meetings about it. And that I just realized that, like, going back to DC right now was going to be a thing where I was not going to be 100% in it, and that's not fair to the characters, that's not fair to the fans. I know I'll be back there, and I'll get there, but I was like, you can get someone else to do these books, like someone else, this will mean everything to them. And right now I'll be looking, I'll have, you know, I'll keep looking out the window at what else is out there. And I don't want that. I don't want to make books under that condition. And they were very appreciative and very respectful of that. And they said, you know, when you're ready, we're here. And so I fully made the commitment last year. I was like, I'm just doing creator-owned books. I'm just going to do my own stuff. Maybe a year, maybe 2 years. I have a bunch of projects I want to do. They're in various stages. And then you get an email that's Todd McFarlane's assistant, and she's like, hey, Todd wants to call you. And every plan you've made goes out the window, like immediately. You're just like, whatever he needs, we're going to do it. I didn't know why he was calling. I was totally, I built all these fictions in my head about why he'd be calling me that were bizarre, that I was just like, I don't know, it's fucking Todd McFarlane. Like, and I met Todd, and he's always been really kind to me, but it was very like, seemingly out of the blue, and he called and made it clear right away that it was Spawn. And I, you know, could not have said yes fast enough. There was not a moment where I hesitated or had to think about it. I just was like, whatever you need. Like, yeah, let's go.
In hindsight, it would have been funny if you took the pause and been like, well, you know, I'm gonna have to think about this one. Like,
sure. I think Todd is I think he would have respected the hell out of that. I think
No.
you know, I think he would have been like, good for you. But I didn't. I came just shy of fanboying on him and just being like, which I do every time we're on the phone. I'm always on the verge of doing, and I stop myself. But yeah, no, it means everything. I'm so excited.
Listen, I would have agreed to doing something that wasn't even Spawn, just because I would have been to jump the gun. So he would have been like something Spawn-esque, and I'd be like, oh yeah, oh wait a minute,
yeah, let's do it.
I don't know what I signed up for.
In my head, and I know why. It took me a minute to figure out why I thought this. And he made a lot of the company McFarlane Toys made, I think, 8 DC vs. Vampires action figures.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my head, I was like, he's calling to talk about toys. And I don't know why. I was like, that's why he's calling me. He's calling to talk about toys. And then I was like, he doesn't need my permission to make DC vs. Vampire. Why would he call me for that? Like, if he wants to make more, he just make them. And then I was like, oh, maybe he wants to make 4 Kids Walking to a Bank toys. And I was like, that'd be cool. And then I was like, no, that's not why he's calling either. And then I fully went into the call, and I was like, he's going to offer me a book. He's going to ask if I want to do something. I have to make a play for Sam and Twitch. That's what I want. And I was like getting ready to be like, whatever I need to do to get Sam and Twitch, like, give it to me. And then he was like, what do you think about Spawn? And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. I was asking. Yeah. I was asking if I could, you know, give out drinks on the bench of the team. And he was like, do you want to be the quarterback? And I was like, oh, I guess. I was going to be polishing everyone's cleats, but sure, I'll do that too. So yeah, it's been awesome. It's been a learning experience and a dream gig and all of those things. It's really fun so far.
That's amazing. And I obviously, can you tease what we should be expecting? I don't want, like I said, I don't want no spoilers, obviously, but this is brand new stuff. But you know, just what can you tease about what we should be looking forward to?
Yeah. So I can just tell this. I think it's fine, or I'll get yelled at, but we'll find out. My first pitch to Todd, he didn't like, and he was just like, no, and was so not into it. And I was kind of like, okay, well, what's the problem? And he said, that feels like a book I'd write. And I was like, yeah, it's your book. Like, it's Spawn. It's your book. Like, you've written hundreds of issues of it. I'm trying to do that. And he's like, if I wanted a book that felt like I'd write it, I'd write it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. And he's like, I'm hiring you because I want to see what you would do. And that was a lightning bolt moment for me. That's not something that even some of my most beloved best editors, no one has said to me. I mean, people have said similar, but more often than not, when you take on someone's character, a company's character, they try and figure out how to fit you into the hole that character is. No one has said make the hole your shape. To me, it just doesn't come up. Like if you do that, and people do it, and people get to do it, and I've gotten to do it a few times, and you're breaking it yourself and being like, can I do this? Can I get away with this? And Todd's first thing to me was like, why do you fit in this hole? Why doesn't the hole look like you? And that to me was everything. And I came back and I was like, well, I'm just going to swing for the fences and let him tell me like, no, you can't do this. This is too wild. And I called and we got on the phone, 3-4 hour call. I went through everything and he lit up and he was just, his mind was racing, and I knew I had it, and that's what it is. And so I think the emotion, the big picture idea, the concept of the idea that I'm pitching is that if you've never read Spawn before, if you've never touched a Spawn comic, if you've thought about it and just it's been too intimidating, or if you've never thought about it, this is where you start. This is as good a place to start as any. If you're a lifelong Spawn fan, if you've loved the book forever, we're going to give you something you've never seen before, and it is fully a love letter to Spawn and what the character is. And it's just, you just have to trust us. So we're going to ask for a few issues before you send the hate mail. If you're a lifelong Spawn fan, give us 3 issues before, and you'll see how the shape it's taking. And I think you're going to really dig it. I mean, I think issue 1 is great, but the idea is that it's a year time jump from when we last saw Spawn. In Spawn 375, Todd's writing 375. I have a 5-page story in the back of it. That is, it seems small. It's about a young kid in the Bowery, from the Bowery in the Lower Manhattan, and it's a young kid, and something happens to him, and then the next thing we see, it's a year later, and you're going to be with this kid, and the world has changed. Spawn has changed, the status of Spawn. A lot of the characters are going to be gone, not forever, but for a bit. There's going to be new characters. There's going to be a new status quo. Everything is kind of a little different, and we're not going to tell you why right away. And you're going to have to stay with us as it unfolds. And in Spawn and King Spawn, each book is written to stand alone. If you're just a King Spawn reader, you can read just King Spawn. If you're just a Spawn reader, you can read Spawn. They are better together. They tell a story that will connect constantly. There are sort of 2 sides to the coin that is Spawn, and Spawn is the bright, shiny heads, and King Spawn is the dark underbelly tails. And so they are taking place at the same time. Characters will be crossing over, ideas will be crossing over, but they are designed to be read alone. I'm not trying to make anyone's, I know people are on a budget. If you got $4 a month to buy Spawn, and that's what you got, you're going to get a great book. You're going to get the book you want. If you can spare $8, you're going to get a bigger, crazier version. And that's the pitch. It's just it's a complete it's not a reboot. It's not a retcon. It's none of that. I've seen people being really nervous that we're throwing things out. We're not throwing anything out. Anything you've read that happened and is going to inform what we're doing.
Well, one, that is an incredible cosign. Like you can't ask for anything better than Todd just saying, I want your story. Like,
yeah,
that whole, oh my God, that's just incredible. And 2, I'm glad I have a coat on here because I have goosebumps right now about hearing about this pitch. Like, I'm excited about what you're bringing to Spawn. Like, I remember going into my comic shop way back when and seeing the stand-up fixture and the cardboard cutout and just like being blown away. Like, what is this? And they're like, it's Todd McFarlane, it's Spawn, and being hooked and yeah, I can't wait to see this.
I've been a lifelong Spawn fan, so this is awesome for me.
Yeah,
it's just great to see something different and something new. It's in a universe that we're all familiar with and love.
Yeah,
so, Super dope.
Someone asked me, they were like, you know, someone sent me an email that was a list of things, and they were like, are these things in the book? And some of them are things that haven't been in the book in 20 years. And I was like, some of those are in the book. And some of them that seem like staples, I was like, are not in the book at first. So I think people are going to see very quickly, like, there's going to be some familiar stuff that you don't expect, and there's going to be some stuff that you 100% expect that is missing. And that's sort of the joy of it, is like everyone's going in on the same footing to be like, what the hell is happening? Because that's sort of the status quo a year in the future, is like the whole world is like, what the hell is happening? Things are really in a weird place. So we're putting the readers right there with the characters.
Oh man. And like, how can you not be excited for that? That's why we can't stress enough, wherever you're watching this, wherever you're listening to this, first and foremost, you need to get down to the comic shops and FOC If Destruction Be Our Lot. You need to get that in your collection. But while you're there, get Spawn in your pull list, get King Spawn in there, because trust me, if you see Matt's name on a book, you're going to get something special. You're going to get your money's worth, because he is one of the dopest writers in comics, period. Any book you pick up by him, you're going to have an experience. And it's not going to be the same old stuff that you read. It's going to hit you with so many different themes. You're not going to know what's coming, but by the time you're done with it, you're like, man, that was an impressive read. I can say that from any book you want to mention that he has written that I have in my collection. That is a true cosign, and I cannot wait to see what he has coming here. Matt, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us. We definitely have to get together again soon and recap about what's going on.
Yeah, no, thank you guys so much. This was an honor. You guys are really kind for having me on, and I was running late today, and you guys were patient with me as I was trapped in subway hell, and so I owe you one. So anytime you need something, you let me know. And no, this was great. It's always a blast to talk to you guys.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's always awesome to talk to you as well.
Yeah. So on behalf of Rich and myself, thank you again for checking out another edition of Fanlight Zone Presents. We'll see you next time.